I feel I hardly need to introduce our guest this evening. Louise Penny is the author of the internationally best-selling Chief Inspector Gamache novels. Her books, which are set in Quebec, have debuted on the New York Times bestseller list and have won awards internationally. She has won so many awards that she can scarcely have a mantle large enough to hold them all.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Trina, who has been just wonderful from start to finish, from that first email that she wrote me, and I think she had barely hit the send button before I wrote back yes. Excited when I discovered that Anne went to Queen's University and that my brothers were going to Queen's University. It was really one of those first, that and Never Cry Wolf, the Farley Mowat. That's right, where they're Canadian. It connected with my life. It just seemed inconceivable to me. So I was reading Charlotte's Web. Now, I was clearly a lonely child because I was a fearful child, and my cardinal fear was spiders. It was beyond fear into a phobia. And I think I may have been a slightly slow child, because I was reading Charlotte's Web, and it was about halfway through before I realized that Charlotte's a spider. And I can still feel the nubbly bedspread under my hand, and that instant when the world changed. Because what changed in that instant was my fear disappeared. Because I loved Charlotte. My fear went away. And I wanted, as a fearful child, I understood the power of the word. Anything that could do that, I wanted to be a part of. Things that I remember and I take away from 20 or 25 years of listening to people. I mean, there were times, of course, when people were just in a rage. But what I remember most are those moments that just stopped me cold. There were moments of such grace, of such compassion, of such forgiveness, that words failed me. I can remember sitting there just looking at the person thinking, I can't believe a human being can forgive what you just forgave. And I could see it in their eyes that they actually forgave it. And it was just so overwhelmingly inspiring that that's what I took away from 20 years. Not 20 years of the politicians and all that rancor and all the stuff that we're listening to today and that we'll be listening to 20 years from now. That doesn't change. What changed me was the compassion of some of the people, of the forgiveness, the kindness that people are capable of. But I find I was getting very tired. It was wearing me down. I don't think I was really well suited to be a journalist. I then, though, unfortunately made a huge tactical error. I announced all over CBC Radio, never do this, that I was quitting to write a book. Now, I may have intimated I was quitting to write the best book ever. So then I, in this great flourish, left CBC and then suffered writer's block for 5 years. 5 years. 5 years. I watched Oprah Winfrey and I ate gummy bears. Which, for 3 years wouldn't have been bad, but 5 seemed excessive. A group of women friends called ourselves Les Girls. And we get together once a month and talked about what they were doing. And they were into sculpting, and they were into visual, painting and poetry and all sorts of things, writing plays. And then there was me, and I was doing nothing. And not once did any of those women insist that I explain my seat at the table. Never once did they. They never told me what I had to do. They never gave me advice. They just talked about their own processes. And I went to their openings, and I went to their shows, and I saw shows that were spectacularly great and with huge successes. And I saw shows that they went down in huge flames. It was a disaster. And you know what? Next day, they still got out of bed, they still got their clothes on, and they walked down Main Street with their heads held high like the magnificent women that they are. And I learned after, again, the slow learner, Charlotte's a spider, and trying won't kill you. What will kill you is not trying. That's the failure. is not kind. So that at the end of my days, I know that fear didn't steal the one thing I was meant to do. That at the end of my days, I had done it. I have no regrets. I might have disappointments, but I would have no regrets. But I finally looked at that and I realized I was trying to write the wrong book. And for the wrong reason. I was trying to write a book of divine literary fiction where, you know, I would win all these awards and my mother would say, oh my God, you are smart. And my brothers would say, oh yeah, we're sorry about all those things we said. You know, my former principals, my former colleagues, the woman who voices my GPS would be pleased. Recalculating. She is smart, recalculating. And I in that instant realized that I had to do like what my friends in Les Girls do. They did it because they wanted to for themselves. That whatever it was they were creating, the process was enough. And that's what I needed to do. I needed to write a book for myself. Not for anybody else. For myself. I needed to write a book I would read. Not just would like to read, would love to read. And I needed to enjoy the writing of it because it may never be published. And that was okay if it was never published. Because the contract with my 8-year-old self wasn't that the book be published, wasn't even that the book be any good. Just the book be finished. I went to the local bookstore because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to find a publisher. So I went to the local bookstore and I spoke to a young clerk there I hadn't met before. And I said, you'll never guess what just happened. I just finished my first book. And she said, oh my God, that's fantastic. That is wonderful. Congratulations. Would you like to buy another one? She did. Her name's Jennifer. And I still go in there and in fact I don't. I mean, I think it was one of the funniest things I've heard in a long time, and God bless her for giving me that great moment. But it also was, again, a shot across the bow, that sort of, you know, God telling me, look, Eve, you know, if you got in this because you're thinking your ego is going to be fed, you got another thing coming, little women. I want to enjoy the writing of it. So I will create a character whose company I will enjoy. So I gave Gamache all the qualities I admire in a human being. He's content. He's a happy man. He loves his wife. He knows how to give love and how to receive it. He's a kind man in a cruel world. And he's not kind because he's too stupid to understand how cruel the world is. He knows perfectly well how cruel the world is. He sees it every day. No one knows better than he does, but he chooses to be kind. And the courage it takes to choose kindness when faced with cruelty, now that's character. And that makes him interesting for me. And so I decided to create a man I would marry, and that's Gamache, because there is that kind of intimate relationship that I end up having, and I hope you end up having with him as well, except you, sir. Yes, in fact, I've finished before coming on tour, book 8. I appear to have an endless well of murderous thoughts. I don't actually call it book 8. I call it The Beautiful Mystery.